Hi, my name is Trevin, and I'm a psychology student at Utah Valley University. I'm currently working to finish my undergrad and receive a bachelor's degree in psychology, and to work on getting admitted into one of the many graduate programs that involve counseling or clinical psychology. Something I'm working on. And as I've been working on it, I've been looking into some of the myths that are commonly believed about graduate programs. Not only myths about graduate programs, but also debunking these myths using research and using some of the things that I've been finding as I've been looking up how to be admitted, how graduate programs work, and what that's going to look like for the next few years when I do work on my own graduate degree. So myth number one that I was looking into is that a graduate program requires you to have a nearly perfect GPA, like extremely high. What I've learned is that it is important to have a high GPA. It's just not as important as other things that would be helpful in being admitted into a graduate program. According to the American Psychological Association, when working to get admitted into a graduate program, especially a doctorate degree, it's much more important to the people that are working to admit students to see if they've had research experience in clinical settings, have worked with people. These are much more important experiences than simply getting good grades during your undergrad. Myth number two, about specifically getting a PhD, which is something I've been thinking about a lot more. I originally thought that you needed a master's degree first before getting into a PhD program to get a doctorate in psychology, but this is actually not the case. When I've been researching, I live in Utah, so I've been researching some of the local schools that would work best for me, like Utah State University, University of Utah, or Brigham Young University. Each of these programs for specifically clinical psychology to get a PhD. Oftentimes, for these, you earn your master's degree during the program. And a lot of times, simply an undergraduate degree in a related field is what's necessary and required to get admitted into this PhD program. So you don't need to get an undergrad for 4 years and then take 2 to 3 more years to get a master's before you can finally work for 5 to 7 more years to get a doctorate in psychology, and instead can go straight into a PhD program. Myth number 3, which is much more important to me than other ones. I'm not extremely worried about the other myths, but for me getting into a doctorate program, I'm thinking a lot about my finances. I don't make a lot of money right now being an undergrad student and working part-time, and I am married, so thinking about supporting my family during the next 5 years is one of my top priorities. And it's common to think that graduate programs are extremely expensive, especially compared to undergraduate programs, especially here in Utah. It's actually pretty common for some of these PhD programs here in Utah, the previous ones I talked about, BYU, U of U, USU. These are colleges that offer a lot of scholarship and tuition reimbursement for people who are admitted into PhD programs. And on top of that, often many of the students receive a stipend. That stipend's not very high, but you won't be going into nearly as much debt as you would assume going into one of these PhD programs, because it's not coming straight out of your pocket. A lot of the financial hurt comes from not being able to work full-time and maybe being able to work part-time during the years that you will be doing a doctorate. So in conclusion, when thinking about myths about a graduate program, there are many common misconceptions about what graduate school will look like. And it's still something I'm learning, but it was pretty helpful for me to understand that each of these myths, breaking the bank, whether or not you need to have perfect grades in your undergraduate, or if you need to spend lots of years getting a master's before doing psychology, it's good to know that these things aren't true, and that there is support and there is help given from the programs, and that there's a lot of wiggle room there. But getting experience is very important. You will have lower money than if you just worked a job straight out of undergraduate, but you won't be breaking the bank as much as you realize. And to get into a graduate school. It won't take as many years after your undergrad as you may think. So these were important myths for me to break.